Greetings, Earth citizens from all around our beautiful blue planet. On this fine day, I hope your weather is as gorgeous as it is here in the Texas Hill Country. And Heather Ash was saying the sun is shining in upper New York as well. So I'm already hearing greetings from Costa Rica and Great Britain, and all around North America and Mesoamerica. So welcome to everyone. As we get started today, I'd like to invite you to join in this day just by listening to this Pledge of Allegiance that was given to me by Reuben Medina, an elder, a Native American elder, or Indian elders as they like to be called. And it's a new Pledge of Allegiance that might really fit those of us who consider ourselves first and foremost Earth citizens. The Pledge of Allegiance goes like this. Today, I pledge allegiance to the earth and to all life which it supports, one planet, in our care, irreplaceable, with bountiful resources for all. So that's a good way to begin today. And another way for us to begin is to hear a song with Judith as we begin to move into our theme of the archetypal Redeemer, healer coming to us in various forms of light.
Thanks, Will. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be back here on this beautiful day, and everybody's celebrating something, and I think that's a good thing. And so it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or if you're an atheist or whatever, or if you like Christmas and blah, blah, blah. So that's what we're all faced with, and also the gifts that come from that. So I'm going to sing a little song that's called Children of the Angels. We are children of the angels, keepers of the fire. We are children of the angels, reaching for the light. We are not strangers, we're sisters and brothers. We know we came here to love each other, here in the circle of life.
Thank you, Judith. So this whole notion, this proposal that humans have built into the fabric of the universe a redeemer, healer energy, an archetype which seeks outlets in all different forms. This is a powerful and possible notion. I think about various manifestations. Zoroaster or Zarathustra in Iran. I think about Dionysius in Greece and Heracles. I think about Horus in Egypt. All of these are powerful stories. And of course, we're familiar with Jesus of Nazareth. But maybe what many of us are just really beginning to get acquainted with is the Western Hemisphere version of that story, version of that manifestation. So I've jotted down a few notes here when I juxtapose Quetzalcoatl and Jesus of Nazareth as revealing the following similarities. Both are divine beings playing a large role in creation. a divine being as a link between earth and sky, divine beings associated with the bread of life, divine beings assisting the dead, shedding blood to save the fate of humankind, divine humans dying on a tree, a divine human being resurrected and playing a role in the rebirth of the deceased, a divine human who's associated with both light and dark and the sun. And very important, both are divine humans who will return and bring in the returning both healing and redemption. So this is Quetzalcoatl, but also Quetzalcoatl's deep partner, Tezcatlipoca. These two melded together bring us a manifestation of the Redeemer Healer who is gender fluid. So let me link over to Heather Ash Amara and invite your reflections at this moment, but also to tell us something of your healing redemption by being present for over 20 years in Teotihuacan.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful dance that Tezcatlipoca and Quetzalcoatl have through many, many stories in the Toltec and the Aztec and the Mayan literature. And a lot has been lost, but there's also a lot of pieces that we keep putting together. And as Will said, there's this gender fluidity. Sometimes Quetzalcoatl is female, sometimes Tezcatlipoca is a female. They go back and forth. Sometimes they're brother and sister, sometimes they're lovers. And that's one of the things that I love about Teotihuacan and about working with the energy and the archetype of Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl, as you saw from the beginning, is the snake energy. So that pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, there's many faces of that serpent energy that is Quetzalcoatl. And right there we have that duality of the earth, connection to the earth with the snake, and the wings and the connection to the sky. For myself in relationship to this energy, it's been my willingness to step into not knowing how the healing's going to happen. Often I found that when I've showed up to Teo and I've had the idea of this is what it's supposed to look like, there's a block. The healing, that Redeemer energy, is about the willingness to step into the mystery and to stand in that world between the physical realm and the spiritual realm, between the known and the unknown, between what the Toltec call the tonal and the nagual. And the more I found myself willing to surrender, which is so much about what Teotihuacan is about, and really about what that Redeemer energy is about. It's about teaching us how to surrender, how to let go of the human, and to realize that the healing has always been there for us. We've just been, usually we're the ones that are in the way. One of the most profound experiences that I had in Teotihuacan was going through the journey that is through the center of what we call the Avenue of the Dead, and coming out the other side. And remember a moment where I was walking, I left the group, we had done big ceremony that day, and I was walking and I felt empty. And there was a part of me that was alarmed. Wait a minute, where am I? What's going on? And there was a part of me that was relieved to have let go of the story of Heather Ash, who I was supposed to be, the holding. And what arose out of that emptiness was this immense love for everything, for all the aspects of myself, for life. And it was one of those experiences that is impossible to put into words later, but I think is at the core of the healing, that all of these beings that are coming through to show us how to love. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Will and I were talking about earlier is that each of the Redeemer beings that have come through in so many different cultures in so many different ways, most of them are the son of a mother. So we go all the way back to Isis and Horus, for example, which Jesus is very similar. There's Mother Mary and there's Jesus. Same with Quetzalcoatl within Teotihuacan. There's Quetzalcoatl as the one that we work with, but there's also the angel of death. There's the mother aspect. And it's a very different mythology than we're used to, because the mother is death. The mother is that bridge between life and death. But it's teaching us to let go of everything that we know and to recognize that in that surrender, we're reborn. So that's my recent thoughts around Quetzalcoatl and the partner of Quetzalcoatl in this case, which I believe is the angel of death, the way that we work through the pyramids now.
Thank you so much, Heather Ash. What a pleasure it is for us to wrestle with these energies inside ourselves and outside ourselves. And out of this wrestling comes a form of healing that as we'll see as we go along today, healing means we redeem aspects of ourselves and the world that have been lost to us. And what is deep within us comes to the surface. In fact, I think of a quotation from Jesus of Nazareth in the Gospel of Thomas, where he said, if you bring forth that which is inside you, you will be saved. If you do not bring forth that deep, deep aspect that is inside of you, you will be lost. Powerful statement. And along that line, I want to bring the work of Bodhi Simpson in for us. Bodhi was with us in Teotihuacan, and out of that, she's created a representation of Mother Earth as the healing came through her. And I'm going to show these two aspects of the divine feminine, both the Mother Earth and the angel of death, and then I'll ask Bodhi to comment on them. But first, let's just look at the paintings that Bodhi created so we can take them in as a part of our own healing today as we participate as Earth citizens. So Bodhi, comment on this painting of yours.
So when I got home from our trip, like Heather Ash talked about, I felt so empty and so full at the same time. I had to express these feelings, and I felt so connected to the earth, to the planet, and I just felt so much love coming through. And as I was painting her eyes, I just felt, I don't know, it was like this feeling from her that she's so happy that her children are finally maturing and starting to really have this new awareness and to treat each other with kindness and to treat the planet with kindness. And so I kind of added these earrings on here just as a representation of just all the people of all colors around the world really coming into this new maturity that I feel like I hadn't really tuned into before. I was focusing more on the negativity in the news. But according to this painting, Mother Earth was just telling me that her children are maturing and that she's really happy and really proud. That's what that meant to me.
Wonderful. So now closely associated with Mother Earth in this Mesoamerican story, gospel as it were, is the angel of death. So rather than being a grim reaper or an adversary that we have to conquer, in this story with Tezcatlipoca and Quetzalcoatl, this redeeming, healing energy shows up in a feminine way through the angel of death. So let's bring that painting in and hear what your comments.
So once I created Mother Earth, the image of the angel of death really wanted to be painted. And I really felt on this trip that I really did connect to her energy as a living energy. And as I was painting her, I could just feel the intensity of her eyes, just really looking deeply into my soul, but seeing the truth and giving me full permission to really make a conscious choice about what stories I was really ready and willing to let go of. It was so interesting because at first I was kind of scared of her, and even as I was painting her, my daughter was a little bit scared of her. But as I continued painting her, you know, I felt so much love and just authenticity. And it's like, if you think of her as a great mother, it's like she's so strong. She can really deal with all of it, all of the light, all of the shadow. A different energy, but again, when I was painting her, I was also just feeling that, like you talked about, the divine entities kind of coming in, the combination of the earth realm and the spiritual transpersonal realm. Yeah, they're still kind of communicating to me.
Yeah, thank you. And what I love about these two figures is that if we think about inherent in the universe is healing and redemption, the self-healing quality that's present, seeking entry and coming through you in this instance and showing us clearly about the divine feminine as the carrier of both healing and redemption. And that death herself, while not being an adversary, but rather is an opening into the larger perspective about ourselves and also about the world. So thank you so much, Bodhi, for that. And
thank you, Will.
Yeah. So as we kind of been on this journey, not only at Teotihuacan, but with all of you from around the world and on the chat today, gosh, I'm seeing a person from France now. I'm seeing, oh wow, all of the different people. I really feel inspired by your presence as an Earth citizen today, and together, in a way, see, we become the incarnation today. At this moment, we become the opening. We become this angel of death, this angel of Mother Earth, this, as we connect with each other, we ourselves begin to experience the healing that we aspire to. So I tell you, I don't know about you, but one of the obstacles inside of myself that I wrestle with is my voice of judgment. What can I do with that? I say to myself. My goodness, I've been at this for a while, and yet the subtleties of my own judgments just keep coming to me in various forms. And so I was having a conversation at Teotihuacan about this with one of our participants, and I want to invite us now to listen in on this conversation with Michelle as we experience the healing of transforming our judgments into discernments.
So you've been here a few days, and what's it been like?
It's really changed. I had a lot of excitement and curiosity, and I now feel like I've settled into my body a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more compassion.
More compassion
Mm.
for yourself.
Way more compassion for myself. And softening. The softening. That feels really nice.
Yeah. So that leads me to, you had an experience with Guy Danielson in something we call psychic surgery. Did it relate to what you just said or not?
Absolutely. So I had the psychic surgery last night with Will and Guy, and I was able to take it to the pyramids today, and it was a new word that you introduced to me. We were talking about the difference between judgment and discernment, and then in combination with Heather Ash, being able to find the balance between discernment and judgment.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like perfect timing today to really explore, and then it allowed me to explore anger, love, and a lot of other different things going on.
Yeah, so that's a very large piece for our Earth Citizen audience.
Mm-hmm.
You have gotten to know your judgment in such a way that you don't throw it out the window, but you find a way to have it transformed into discernment.
Yes. Yeah, and I think last night before the psychic surgery, I had such a negative, like I thought it was something bad. And so judgment. And so now I could realize it's just part of the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really sweet.
Yeah. For our Earth Citizens, we just threw out a term called psychic surgery. We don't know exactly what that is. but Guy Danielson is a neurosurgeon who's actually operated on thousands and thousands of brains. And he and I and others are working with the energy body to open it up and do two things. One, to get the toxicity out of the system, but also to repair some of the leaks in the energy field around it. So that's what we're referring to. So, I think what will come across here to our Earth Citizens is the soft radiance that's coming from you as we talk.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pretty magical place here.
Yeah.
A really safe space to let it out, for sure.
Yeah, sure. It's been wonderful to walk this path with you.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
This experience with Michelle Bertolucci is that as we listen to the judgment inside of us, instead of trying to get rid of it, we see that judgment energy transformed into sparkling and crisp discernment. And as judgment shifts into discernment, then we have the possibility of healing. And instead of trying to get rid of our judgment, we experience it as being redeemed and resurrected through the angel of death into a form of discernment. The same might be said of our relationship with our mothers, right? We all know that in the patriarchal society, it seems that historical psychology, at least, has been pretty hard on our mothers. But in this particular form of spirituality and wisdom and healing, we see our mothers in a completely different way. And so I want to shift now to a conversation that I had with Linda Griebenow, and then eventually with Sarah Whiteley from the United Kingdom about this subject, and also the healing and redemption that comes both through our mothers and our relationships with them, but also with the great mother of where the water meets the land and beaches. So away we go with that conversation.
So we've thus far on this Earth Wisdom gathering have been discussing this rather actually astonishing reality that the universe seems to be a self-healing tapestry and seems to produce out of its loins experiences and people who are carriers of both healing and redemption. So that's what we've been talking about so far. But I don't want to talk too much in that direction. Theoretically, I just want us to discuss something we were talking about the other day, namely that the two of you have come to our Wimberley Valley and to both give and maybe receive some healing. And I wonder if you would be willing to share with our Earth citizens a moment of healing that you've experienced that just bubbles up to the top as we're sitting here in this beautiful setting. Beginning with you. This is Linda Griebenow. See, here I am. I've got two beautiful, wonderful guests. I don't even introduce them. So this is Linda Griebenow and of Circles of Coherent fame. And
notoriety.
Sarah Whiteley, Alchemical Collective from the United Kingdom and from Minnesota.
Yes.
So sometimes you guys are participating with Earth citizens from your various places, landscapes. But today we have the wonderful privilege of hanging out with each other.
That's right. Yeah. And it is a blessing. I'm really grateful to be here. Always in your presence and the presence of the Earth Tribe and the landscape here in Wimberley in Texas, the Hill Country. So as far as a moment of healing, I was sharing before a really profound experience that I had as the daughter of my mother. In many lifetimes, I think, we were together. I don't know, if you need to have a particular frame of reference to hold that, but that's mine. I've actually had the experience that we had a contract of some sort to be together for when we talk about healing, and I believe that, as I see in hindsight more than anything, that healing was about all of the edges that I am in awareness this lifetime that I came up to and against and crossed regarding creating compassion in this life. And I can say that in my earlier years, and maybe even right up until shortly before her death, there was a question always about if I was engaged in the way that I needed to be, the right way, the wrong way, if I was good enough, big enough to hold that contract of healing. And I wasn't always aware that it was healing, but I would say in the later years I did have an awareness that this journey must be a healing journey and that I needed to stick to it. And in the last days of her life, I believe that there definitely was what we might call a moment of redemption and a moment of healing that was so beautiful that it's almost indescribable, and it surely was unexpected. I have, from that place of healing, as she and I came to understand what I have mentioned in the past about the human messiness of love,
Yes.
and embodying that, engaging with that, coming to know that, not transcending, and not the transcendent kind of love, but the down and dirty and into the human descent of experience, that kind of love. And the reward was amazing. The transition was amazing. I found it within me to hold a space with my siblings for her passing. She showed me something that I knew nothing about in who she was and is, not just to me, but to other people who engaged with her. And she lived her ordinary life. And that was also the reflection to me of the spiritual path in the ordinary. Everyday life for me, whatever I thought that I knew in these lofty conceptual terms and experiences, I was called, I think, with the greater intelligence of this universe in that experience of cosmic love to know something just right in the trenches, boots on the ground, in relationship. Once we figured out that we belong to one another, and we knew that so completely from a soul level in those last moments, we knew exactly how to behave with one another.
Yeah, so I'm tracking this moment
Yes.
that you had. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you and your mother, really, it's your relationship that is the avatar,
It was.
that is the carrier.
And it still is.
Still is,
Yeah, it's we're not done with one another.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
tell
yeah,
that, you know,
yeah.
but yes,
Yeah,
it
it's
was
happened.
carrier.
It's in the
Absolutely.
cycle, and you have this sense that it's happened before and happened here, and it's happening again, maybe as an ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing. But also, in the agreement that you had throughout your life, there's the hint of tension and conflict. More than a hint.
That's right. I mean, I can tell you something, that there were times when I was in the laundry room sitting on the cooler taking a time out, thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get through this day. And there probably were times, there were many times, we had, I can look back now, and in hindsight, of course, it's clear. And in the middle of it, I can say that there were times I didn't know if I was going to make it in this relationship in a way that I could say that I'd shown up fully or with integrity or commitment. It wasn't so much clear, but underneath it all. In fact, people would say to me, how is it that you continue to stay in this relationship like this? There was something that was guiding me, and I honestly will say that intelligence that knew way more. And, again, we use these terms, we use these ideas, we have these ideas and these concepts. But I was called with her in many ways in this life, but also with her specifically to live into that, to those agreements, to be willing to be guided even when it was unclear, cloudy, hard, painful, made no sense to anybody else, and I couldn't explain it. However, it was something that I could feel was really important. And again, I think even the most important piece of this is constant call to the edge of compassion. And when you talk about tension, there is a tension there, because many times I had to expand, or I thought I was going to go crazy. And that's compassion, self-compassion as well, not just compassion with one another or all of the life around me. So I want to say that I am grateful for the gift that my mother gave me in this lifetime, and that carries on and has helped me expand into compassion. And I now, can carry that forward, not just in her honor, but as an embodied knowing, not just a thought about what that might be.
Wow. And there's such wonderful themes emerging for me as you talk. One is that the two of you are in the presence of the angel or the ally of death. And that this presence of death calls to mind an agreement, a contract that you've had maybe over many lifetimes. And that the redemption meaning the retrieval of a gift that might have been lost and given to you. And there's sweat in it and there's work in it, but in the end, it's a gift.
It's beautiful.
It's a gift.
It really is. Right. That keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is in contrast to so many theories of psychotherapy in your profession, my profession, namely that our relationships in our family of origin are the seats of pathology, which may be true.
She would have thought that. I think she may have mentioned it on a couple of occasions. I think you're my pathology.
But in the midst of all of that dynamic is this gift.
Right. Yeah. And it's reciprocal. You know, it's the energy is reciprocated. It's not just a one-way street.
Yes.
And to the degree anyone can tolerate it. There were many times it wasn't even or 50-50 or anything like that. We were just having then this flow. No, oftentimes the flow was happening, but maybe a little trickle in here and a bigger, experience for her or vice versa. So, but the thing is that that connection was never broken.
Right.
And the guidance to continue, even when it didn't make any sense, oftentimes, my heart had a greater intelligence in this experience, in this relationship, than my mind ever had.
Right. And in the shamanic tradition, there's this notion that you go into a deeper world, an underworld, and from that journey comes a gift. And then there's the story of St. Nicholas coming down the chimney and bringing gifts. And that's a form of redemption. And the gift you have by journeying into this moment is the gift that you've been describing so clearly. Yeah, good. Okay, well we'll come back to that in a minute. And so now, speaking a bit with you, Sarah, we were talking the other day about a gift you got from a walk on the beach, an experience on the beach. So tell us a little bit about that.
So a pre-wave of the story of being on the beach actually came from being at the gathering here 1 year ago.
Yes.
In
At Jacob's Well.
Yeah. And it was you could say, the birthing pool of my wee thesis. So I'm in the master's program, and my thesis became a collective journey around collective alchemy. And what does that mean? And this particular walk on the beach was, I would say, the time when I hit the bedrock, or faced the bedrock, the deepest point of transformation, I would say, having been descending through different cycles. And so this particular day, and prior to that, I'd just been reading your book, Walking with Bears, and I was exploring this quality of relinquishing and what it meant to embrace as I understood it, the possibility of forgiving at the deepest level, and that is just a fraction of, I think, what it really means. But that day I was reading the book, and I was just overwhelmed with the journey that you'd expressed with your a conversation with Bearheart and his journey of relinquishing. And so I stepped out of my home, and I'm right on the coastline. So I live on the cliff top in Whitby.
In Whitby, UK.
Yes, in North Yorkshire, and it's my hometown. That I returned to, having been to Teo and also to the Earth Tribe Immersion. So it was part of the cycle of returning home.
Yes.
And so walking on the beach, it was a beautiful day, children and families playing, and yet I felt abject terror. And so it was this kind of very strange perceptual field, but reality of people just enjoying sandcastles, ice creams, lots of sounds. The sea was quite low tide, and yet I felt terror. And I was picking my way through the picnics. Actually, there were lots of picnics happening, and I was starting to notice particular scenes. So there's one scene of a father running after his son, very angry, very angry. Another was a sand etching that was of a dinosaur, and it's a Jurassic coastline. So there are these different pieces that started to show up in my awareness, and yet this just overwhelming fear. And as I walked, I was barefoot, and I found myself moving towards a particular area of the beach that I go to quite a lot when I do some of my sensing. And I literally was walking on the bedrock of that landscape, and again feeling the waves of terror. So it felt really primal fear.
Yes.
And as I looked ahead, there's a point on the beach that has it's kind of a walkway, but it has these huge rocks called rock armor that is to help break the wave action.
Yes.
And a friend had told me some time before that it was called rock armor, so it's as a protection. And then it dawned on me that actually the protection had come from Denmark. And centuries before, the Danes came ashore in the spirit of some of their practice, which is Viking. And you know, and they terrorized the landscape and yeah, took over in many ways. And yet here was this line of defense that was actually had transformed from being the tyrant to being the protector.
Sure.
And so there was this in the alchemical work that I've understood. It's when there is the embracing of opposites and allowing the confluence and the merging and literal facing and allowing it to permeate one's being, especially the heart center. That's the greatest alchemist, and I feel in my heart right now. It allows the infusion, but also the transformation to come to rest. And that's what occurred in that noticing, and with my feet on the ground, from a place of terror was this overwhelming sense of grace and gratitude and peacefulness. And so there was just an incredible dissipation that occurred in that moment.
Wow, and this is, I think, a gift for our Earth citizens today, that when we talk about the experience of fear and terror, often our civilization's answer to that is medication or some kind of spiritual practice that will help you get rid of it. But what I heard you do is you descended and descended and descended into it. And a passage from ancient literature comes to me that the fear of the Creator is the beginning of wisdom. That is, that descending into the fear is where the alchemy begins to happen, especially when you have your shoes off and they're on the beach. And there's the wave action you're talking about, producing all this wonderful explosion of negative ions and other means of grace.
Yes.
And so out of that came a deep experience of peace.
Absolutely. And one thing I understood after, so I was in the experience of that, and then I was drawn to a number of my resources, research books, including Anne Baring's book, Dream of the Cosmos. And I hadn't realized that the dragon energy is a primordial aspect of the alchemical work. And it felt like, and especially with it being a Jurassic, I touched that foundational tenet of my own being to embrace that force or that power and also that fierceness, in a sense, to stand in what is true and release anything that no longer serves.
Yes.
And as a friend speaks of in the alchemical work that I've been doing, you can't have lukewarm alchemy. It doesn't work that way. So you have to embrace, you also need to step in toward and into the fire to allow the transformation to occur.
Yeah, exactly. And there are several lines of energy coming in to this experience. There's your experience of the deep well of energy coming in this place where we're gathered here. We call Jacob's Well here in the Wimberley Valley. Then there was a reading of this passage of my book where Bearhart is talking about his learning how to relinquish the deep grief he felt over the Trail of Tears and the experience that his grandmother had, losing her legs and so on in the trail, and also the death of his son.
Yes.
And so there's that kind of grief that's implanted in our beautiful planet these days. And then there's this immersion that you're talking about here with us in this valley, the Earth Tribe immersion, but also how you immerse yourself in the landscape that is your home. And all of these come together to lead you. And this is not a very good advertisement for just, I don't know exactly what to say, an easy journey into peace. It's more the alchemy of the opposites coming together and the willingness to have the courage to step into that.
Exactly.
And that's where the gift comes and the healing begins to happen.
Yeah, and I feel that these times they're forging times. You know, it's a challenging time that we're in right now, and I feel that there is an increasing willingness and necessity to be in circles and cycles of transformation, individually and collectively, because of what is now a hyper complex set of circumstances that we need to find a different way of navigating our way forward.
Exactly.
And we need each other. And so to be willing, and that was the gift of being in the alchemy work that is at this time coming toward completion in terms of the research, but knowing it feels like a really core competence of being in transformation together, because we track each other, we support one another, we witness one another, and that is part of the healing cycle that supports our willingness to keep going when, quite honestly, we prefer to turn around and go the other way. And that isn't necessarily what's needed. I don't feel it's needed right now. It's not the time to do that. So, and just one piece, because I have had the gift of staying close to the well these days. And I offered my gratitude to the well. And it was a very profound reconnection when I went for the first time with a member of the Earth Tribe. It was beautiful.
And just so you know, as we're talking, the Earth citizens are actually looking at the well. So that's they'll have the experience of taking that in. And actually, the three of us gathered this week as a part of our Earth Wisdom Academy to see what are the next steps we might take that would offer healing and redemption, that would offer a climate of learning and experiencing that engages the landscape the way you so beautifully described, and engages the basics of our relationships the way you so beautifully described.
So it's been my privilege to be with you this week as you come and part of what we offer here is an Earth Tribe immersion for us to have these kind of experiences. Anything you'd like to say, either or both of you, as we kind of bring this to a close?
Well, this has been a really full experience in many, many ways, multiple dimensions of that. I just want to offer my gratitude for everybody that's hosted us in all ways that we've been hosted, all the way from, people and sometimes even strangers that have been willing to engage. It's been, if nothing else, definitely an engaged experience with landscape, with the ancestors, with mentors, teachers, and people who I hold as my beloveds and who are my tribe. It's been a beautiful experience to come home in all ways, and I'm really grateful. And for Sarah, for us to move out of and away from just knowing one another through the ethereal and internet, but actually have physical experience with one another here. I'm really grateful for your willingness to travel here and to be with me through this week. More to come, more to be revealed, and so gratitude.
So yeah, I noticed on the chat that several of you have noticed that when I was talking with Michelle, and also when I was talking with both Sarah and Linda, that there was in the background the sound of water. With Michelle, it was actually raining, and I have no idea where the sounds of water came from when I was talking with Linda. It sounded like the Jacob's Well was running right as we were talking. But these were the waters of healing. And I especially want to acknowledge those of you on the chat who have brought up really interesting comments. Amy Blumenshine from over in Minnesota making these comments. And you brought to my attention, Amy, with your chat comment about the water. And so we really appreciate that. And especially, I'm going way back to the beginning and noticing that Karen Wecker from Virginia is here. And thank you for joining us, and Hirith as well. And I especially want to welcome the people from France who were joining us. I expect maybe they are friends of yours, Heather Ash, and we're glad to have them here. And actually, I want to get to a closing moment here, but I believe, Heather Ash, you were in France assisting with a birth of some sort. Was that right?
Yes, I was blessed to help doula a little baby coming into the world. So that was an amazing experience. It's always a gift to be with that beautiful in-between space of young life.
Hey, listen, when is it that you're leaving for Bali?
I leave December 24th for Bali in India, and I'll be gone for about a month.
Okay, so I would like for you and I to talk for a few minutes and record it for our next session, because on January the 5th, the theme is giving birth to a new era in ourselves within Earth. So we're going to talk for just a few moments about that. But at the bottom of our discussion today about the healer redeemer walking in our midst, do you notice how we kept coming back to compassion? Linda said this agreement she had that she and her mother somehow belonged together over time and space through different cycles, the bottom of which was pushing her into more and more compassion, because if she didn't go there, she'd go crazy. And also, Sarah's going deep into the terror where eventually she found a compassionate peace. And then the beautiful paintings from Bodhi that reflected in the angel of death, actually, compassion and love. So at this moment, I recall a poem that's written by our resident poet laureate, Carol Flake, and I'd like to bring it in before Judith sings for us to experience that at the bottom of this revelation, of this incarnation, of all of these different manifestations that we've been talking about, is the deep experience of compassion and love. So, Carol?
I've written about healing in a lot of different ways, and this poem that I'm going to read you is about the process of healing, which can be, it seems like taking forever and ever and ever, and then suddenly one day you realize the grief is gone, or at least most of it. So this is called recovery. Finally, there will come a day when you will throw away the crutches. You will wake up, and before you know it, you are walking without them. You ask yourself, what is this strange feeling? Is it the coffee? You are poking through the ashes of your ruined past and find a photo of you and your beloved smiling in Paris, or maybe Rome, or maybe your back porch. You ask yourself, what is this strange feeling? Is it the wine? You are walking the dog on the same street you have walked for the past 8 years, but this time there is a spring in your step, and you might even run a little. You ask yourself, what is this strange feeling? Is it the cool weather? You sit down in the same chair where you heard the terrible news that afternoon. But you're not thinking about that time. You're thinking about a new sweater. You ask yourself, what is this strange feeling? Is it the shopping? You look in the mirror and see a face that is not stained or strained with grief and regret, but just an ordinary face with new lines, and some are actually from smiling. You ask yourself, what is this strange feeling? I think it is happiness. You drill down through the layers of your soul until you hit something, and you can't believe that there is such solid ground under your feet. You ask yourself, what is this strange feeling? I think it is love.
Yes, I do think it is love. And as we think about Advent, as we think about the coming of healing, the coming of redemption, in the end, we see love in so many different ways. And as we come to the close of our time together today, I want to reach out to all of you who've joined us, a very large group of people from around the world, around Mother Earth. And I want to invite you into this circle of healing. Whatever your grief is, whatever your sadness, whatever your anger, whatever your judgment, whatever your loss, whatever your physical difficulty, whatever your pain, whatever your suffering, I invite you into the circle of healing and redemption. That all of us together would be divine incarnation. That in ourselves and in our bodies, in our feelings, in our thoughts, we would become that divine spark which seeks to glow inside of us. We're going to close today with an ancient healing song that Judith is going to sing, and I'll sing along in the background. And as you listen to these ancient sounds. You don't need to know the meaning of the words. I invite you to take them in, let them resonate and move through your body, mind, spirit as we become incarnations of healing and redemption. Amamaya Toma, Amamaya Toma, Hey Yahweh, Yahweh Kili Toma, Amamaya Toma, Amamaya Toma, Amamaya Toma, Amamaya Toma. Hey na hey ne Yahweh. Aho.
Oh,
May healing and redemption unfold in all of us as we move through this next cycle of the moon. Goodbye, Earth citizens. Next time.
blessings.